everybody. Thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. We are joined tonight, very excited to be joined by the Hodge twins, Keith and Kevin Hodge. They've been on with us before, and host of Stacy on the Right. Not Jenny from the block, but Stacy on the Right on Sirius XM. Stacy Washington. Guys, thank you so much to everybody for joining us.
Thanks, Lara. Great to be here.
Thank you for having us. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I think we'll start tonight with social media censorship, because we know it really kind of impacts all of our lives in different ways, but it continues to plague our country thanks to big tech. President Donald Trump has been banned, as we know, from various social media platforms. And last week, when we posted our interview here on The Right View on Facebook with former President Trump, former President of the United States of America, it was immediately removed. Facebook told us that posts that include the president speaking will fall within their ban for him on their platform. Now, at the same time, stories broke late last week that YouTube has been deleting millions of dislikes. It's almost funny and kind of sad, from Biden White House videos, guys. I mean, I don't know. I haven't even checked out the Biden YouTube channel, but apparently it's no good. Now, Joe Biden's White House YouTube channel has consistently received more dislikes to any video they post on their official channel. At times, the rate has been 16 dislikes for every 1 like. That's pretty bad. Now, who knows if it's YouTube trying to protect Joe, or if, Biden is working with the YouTube team. I don't know what's going on over there, but it's pretty clear that it's just another effort to hide the lack of enthusiasm and really the lack of respect for Joe Biden, and try and improve the narrative for him. So, Keith and Kevin, I'm going to come to you guys first. You both have a really massive online presence. So give me your thoughts on all of this. I mean, what is going on with social media? What's going on with YouTube? What do you think of all of this?
I mean, it's ridiculous. The biggest argument I hear from the left regarding social media and gives them a right to do this, they said they're a private business.
Right.
I'm like, what's the whole point in drawing up the Constitution?
Right.
You know, I mean, it's like, if you're a private business, if you believe that, you think private businesses can just start a business and a white man can tell black people you're not welcome here.
Yeah, essentially, just to throw that logic back in their face, a white supremacist can open up a restaurant and say they don't serve black people. Since they're a private organization, they don't have to abide by the Constitution. It's just stupid logic.
Yeah, if you believe that, what's the point in drawing up the Constitution?
Right.
Well, it does beg the question. And Stacy, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas seems to be getting increasingly worried about just this, how social media companies operate, exactly what Keith and Kevin are saying here. He recently said that they do not have the right to ban protected speech. What do you think is going to happen with big tech? I really hope we see some movement in this space, because I think if we continue on in this fashion, it's really frightening for the future of America.
So, Laura, the big deal for me is I'm waiting on them to be placed in the category of utilities. Public utilities can't tell you you can't have electricity, or you can't have a phone because you're a conservative, or because you say things we don't like, or because you have phone calls with people, conference calls where you don't espouse liberal viewpoints. So I want them to be declared utilities. I want to see data portability in the same way that we have mobile cell phone portability. You can take your number to any carrier. We should be able to take our data, all of our likes, all of our followers. We should be able to put a message up on Facebook that says, I've moved to Parler or Gab or wherever, Cloud Hub. You can find me there, and then a link that takes them there so they can follow you at the new location. And I'd like to see them, the same way that you have your same cell phone number across all channels. I'd love to have my @Stacy on the Right be good everywhere, as opposed to having a different sign on every single one of these, websites. So this is possible, and Clarence Thomas actually alluded to it in his statement that he made in that opinion. And so it's only a matter of time. And I want to see it mainly because when I read the statement that they made to you, Laura, any post with President Trump, former President Trump's voice in it, will be treated as content that was not supposed to be posted. And then your actual site, whether it's a page or whatever, will have its distribution limited. It's not just that you can't have the president's voice on the platform. It's that if you decide to share something that has an image or voice of President Trump in it, you're actually going to be punished with less distribution. That is totalitarianism, and Facebook is engaging in it openly. And I'm so glad that Justice Thomas is actually mentioning it and calling it to their attention. They should be afraid. They should change their behavior, but they won't because they're liberals.
Yeah, well, they won't because they're liberals, but they also, exactly what the Hodge twins were saying.
And on top of that, they're censoring people, the public, whenever they want to dislike or like a video. They're pretty much saying that what you say is not important. It's what we feel is correct, was what we feel is right.
Right.
They're taking all those rights away from the American people.
Yeah, it's really crazy. And I often see people will comment on something that I've posted and say, I've been trying to like your post for like an hour and it won't let me like it. I mean, it is totalitarian in by and large, what we see happening. And I think they're trying to normalize it. They're trying to get people used to this idea that, oh, yeah, well, they just took down another person off of Facebook, off of Twitter, whatever it is. That's just a normal thing. That's not normal to say, well, we disagree with this person's viewpoint and some of the things that they say, so we're just going to completely wipe them off the map and not give them a platform. That is not right. So I really hope, Stacy, what you just said is ultimately what we see happen, because we cannot continue on like we have been. This is not going to work for the future of this country. Now, the other big story that's taking over the news cycle, as we have all seen, is this confusion, I'll put it very nicely, confusion about the Georgia election integrity laws. To put it simply, this law in Georgia will make it easier to vote and harder to cheat. Now, I don't know anybody that thinks that's a bad thing. The new law expands early voting, allowing people more opportunities to vote early, lets places having early voting remain open later, and requires a photo ID to get an absentee ballot. Dare I say it, but these seem, guys, like some pretty non-controversial, common sense improvements to voting in our country. But that hasn't stopped companies like Coca-Cola and Delta Airlines from threatening the state of Georgia, including Major League Baseball moving their All-Star game, as we have all heard, from Atlanta to Denver in protest. Now, the MLB commissioner actually said protesting Georgia's new voting integrity law was, and I quote, the best way to demonstrate our values as a sport. Moving the game and all the potential revenue from Atlanta, which, as many people know, is 51% black, to Denver, which is 76% white, guys, is demonstrating their values. And it's interesting that they mentioned demonstrating their values at all when last Wednesday, the MLB signed a deal with a Chinese company, Tencent. And this company is one of the companies that briefly dropped the NBA when a Houston Rockets coach took a pro-democracy stance by supporting the Hong Kong protesters against China. Now, Keith and Kevin, what are these values that they're talking about? Maybe I'm confused because whenever you take revenue away from a place like Atlanta, that, as I just mentioned, is 51% black, and send it to Denver, which is 76% white, what values is it that they're talking about? I'm confused.
They're just all about making the money. Yeah. I mean, that's the only thing I could really think of. And if you actually read that new law that's in Georgia, and it agrees with what you said, it makes it easy to vote and harder to cheat. I mean, if you want to write up laws and change laws when it comes to the election, that's what you aim for. Right. Easy to vote, harder to cheat. And that law was passed democratically.
Yeah. And that law applies to not only black people, it applies to white people. Yeah. It applies to everybody. Yeah. It's to ensure the integrity of our elections.
Yeah. And they had the audacity to label that Jim Crow 2.0.
Which is enabling to vote a lot easier because they're trying to say they're discriminating against black folks because they can't get an ID. In the state of Georgia, you can get an ID from the state free of charge.
Yeah.
Free of charge. So that was just basically a lie.
But let me ask you guys, I want to get your thoughts on this, because we have continued to hear from the left that it is racist to suggest that people should have an ID to vote. Now, you have to have an ID to do so many things: open a bank account, rent an apartment, fly on an airline, use a credit card, so many things. And I talk about this all the time, and I always want to get people's take. I feel that it might be a little insulting to suggest that minorities somehow cannot get identification. What do you guys think of this? Am I crazy here?
I feel like I'm going crazy. I'm like, I don't know anybody that doesn't have an ID.
Right.
I don't know no black people that don't know how to use a computer.
Joe Biden
I don't know
thinks
any
that they
black
might have
people
a
can't
problem.
find a DMV.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's crazy stuff. I don't
It almost
understand.
leaves you speechless, Lord, when these things, they say something. And when President Trump was in office, every little thing they would take out of context. And the things Joe Biden say and the things Democrats say about black people is just outright racist, ridiculous. It's demeaning. It's like disrespectful.
It's a lie.
Yeah.
They just don't want to have people to identify themselves to vote. They want to keep that door open for possible cheating, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well,
why else would you not require somebody to show an ID before they vote because you want to leave that window open? Makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that that's the goal, but they have framed it in such a way that anyone that would suggest that you have to have an ID to vote is obviously bigoted. You're obviously a racist if that's the case. Stacy, I want to come to you. Is the radical woke left just as powerful as communist China? Because I kind of feel like that's what we're seeing. They seem to scare these companies pretty equally, and these companies are willing to bow down and do anything that they say.
Well, they are, because we really haven't exercised our rights, and it's still, things are still pretty new. I feel like the companies are coming out because they've all been told, you know, the new lay of the land. The Biden administration is like, they're enforcers. Their media is the enforcement arm of the Democrats, and they will punish any company that doesn't bow down to what they say. And they've shown us that with Fauci, with the statements that they've made about immigration, and the lies, the way they go back and correct the transcripts when Joe Biden calls a world leader the wrong name. They just went through and corrected some of the transcripts that have to do with the immigration issue at the border. So they're into correcting their mistakes, acting like it didn't happen, rewriting history. Jen Psaki lies on a daily basis from the press corps room there. And what's interesting about her is they used to say awful things about Kayleigh McEnany, who was overqualified for the job and overperformed on a daily basis. Jen is just barely qualified. I mean, I think we have teenagers living right here in this household who could do the job better than she does, and they don't have any press experience. But when you talk about the companies, they're afraid right now because they don't know what the Biden administration will do. But I'll speak to them like I do for any business that doesn't earn my dollar. They should be afraid of 78 million Trump voters and our kids and our husbands and our wives and dogs and everything else that we're spending money on. They should be afraid of us. And I don't mean because we're totalitarians. I mean because we spend a lot of money. We save it, we invest it, we spend it. So they should be concerned about us not patronizing their businesses anymore. But we haven't made that clear yet, because I got to tell you, Laura, I'm waiting to see what President Trump does with his social media, because not having him on Twitter, it's like a wasteland over there, like not having President Trump's tweets. And I'm so excited when I saw that you'd interviewed him. I actually told my husband, I'm like, we're going to watch this together. He was like, yeah, when is it? Before we even had a chance to watch it, they'd removed it. So wherever President Trump lands, that's where the majority of Americans, even the liberals, because they're missing him bad, they're having TDS withdrawal symptoms from Trump's tweets to read. When he comes back, that's when everybody goes to wherever he lands. That's when we're going to see the advertisers really have to make a decision. Do we want to bow down to Biden and lose money? Or do we want to make money by treating Americans based on what they're going to spend? Because advertising used to be about your demographics, where you live, how much money you make. Now everything is geared towards wokeness, and it's idiotic, and it's going to lose people money. And that, in this economy, it just won't work. Biden's already making our economy suck eggs. He's making it stink. We have to have an opportunity to make money. And the only way to do that is for them to pay attention to what Americans are looking for. We're consumers. We have a consumer-based society. They have to pay attention to that if they want to survive.
Can we just keep politics out of something? Can we keep it out of baseball? Can we keep it out of the airlines? My gosh, everything is just so inundated with politics. And Stacy, I think you're spot on. I haven't been on Twitter in ages. I barely go on there because you're exactly right. It is a total and complete wasteland without President Donald Trump on there. Nobody cares. Nobody's really tuning in. There's not that much activity over there. And I think that, you know, they are desperate. Even the haters, the biggest haters of all, the Jim Acostas, all of them, they want more Trump in their life because that's what keeps them going.
Right.
But speaking of the fake news, they got caught in another big lie. Not that that should be a shocker. When 60 Minutes blatantly edited an answer from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to make it appear as if he committed some type of wrongdoing when he was taking questions about his coronavirus response and vaccine distribution. Now, I know how this works, guys, because I worked as a producer for a long time. I worked for a television company for a long time, a TV show for a long time, and I know exactly how you do it. And this is exactly what 60 Minutes did. They spliced together random pieces of his over 2 minutes long answer to create some type of controversy. And then they aired it all across the country. They didn't care about whether what they put out there was true, whether it resembled at all the answer that he gave. They just cut it up and put it out there to try and create something messy and get people all riled up. Now, this isn't anything new, because during the campaign, don't forget, President Trump had to fight back to air the full recording of his 60 Minutes interview before it aired, because they knew, we knew it was very clear that he was about to get the same treatment from their editing team. And the New York Post recently published an op-ed titled "America's Left Puts Putin to Shame When It Comes to Disinformation." This was a very interesting article, and they point out all these woke ideas and how it's so influential on getting people to do things. And it really is, Stacy, disinformation that a lot of these woke media companies, the leftist media, pushes out there. So what is going on, do you think, Stacy, with these media outlets?
Well, first of all, Governor DeSantis is the most successful governor in America, besides the governor of Texas. And the only reason the governor of Texas is not getting more kudos is because of the winter storm, and there were people without power. And so that kind of, it was a really negative experience for millions of people. But when you look at the number of COVID-19 infections and the hospitalizations and all of that, Florida has been on par and actually done better than California, which is a comparable state in, you know, at least weather-wise. And Florida didn't have the lockdowns and California did. So Governor DeSantis is dangerous for liberals because he proves everything that Fauci says on a daily basis to be a lie. Any person that's effective, we saw this with President Trump, the minute that they realized they'd messed up and he won, because they didn't think he could win, then they went on the offensive and they tried to take down everything he said. And they were more and more aggressive as each month went on, as each year of the Trump administration went on. So what we're seeing with the media is the same thing with Governor DeSantis, because they're afraid that he'll run in 2024 or lay the groundwork to run after that. And he's Trumpian in his presentation. He doesn't let them lie. He doesn't let them ask him stupid questions. He calls them out, but he's a little more mild in his demeanor. His tweets don't trigger them as much. He doesn't seem to do as much of that, but the man has fun. He has a nice looking wife and kids. He drinks beer on the weekend. He hangs out with people in Florida. He doesn't hole himself up in his mansion like Governor Cuomo. He hasn't killed 15,000 elderly people like Governor Cuomo. He doesn't have a whole lot of sex allegations against him like Governor Cuomo. I mean, he's not mean like Governor Gruesome Newsom. There's a lot about him to like. And he's friends with President Trump. And he's the governor of the state where President Trump lives. So they have to take him out. It's him and it's Tucker Carlson. But we saw what happened with President Trump. They struck him. He only became stronger. They will strike DeSantis. He will only become stronger, which will enrage them and cause them to do more of this disinformation campaign they're engaging in. And it will cause them to do more things against him, like the lies. So when I saw them typing that together, I thought of what you guys did with President Trump with his 60 Minutes interview, how you released it before. And they screamed like toddlers, oh, you can't release it. You can't let it out before we have a chance to edit it. Well, it was perfect. And that's what Governor DeSantis has to do. He has to kind of look at the groundwork that was laid by the Trump administration and your team and really emulate that to protect himself against the lies and the smears that they're going to put against him. But he's Teflon because there's nothing like success. President Trump showed us that well before he was even president. Success paves the way, and it actually shields you from the arrows that they try to sling against you, especially the lies and disinformation.
Yeah, and for anybody that hasn't seen, you can go look it up online. Go look up the full 2-minute answer that Governor DeSantis gave, because it was great. It was perfect. It was so clear that the story that 60 Minutes was trying to spin would not have held up under any circumstances had they actually given his full statement and what he said. But of course, they didn't do that. Now, Keith and Kevin, I want to come back to you guys. You know what barely got any coverage, although all of this is going on? Bless his heart, Pete Buttigieg, our new transportation secretary, because he staged a bike ride after he got caught unloading his bicycle from a gas-guzzling SUV near the White House. Then he got on his bike and he rode it to a cabinet meeting because why? He had to promote eco-friendly transport in front of the media. I want to get the response of you guys, because this was actually hilarious. You see, literally, I think it's Secret Service taking his bike off the car, getting it set up for him. One of the guys even makes sure he turns on the light underneath the back, you know, so that it's flashing so that no cars hit him and he's all safe and he's got his pants all tied up properly. What'd you think of that video?
I was like, amazing. These Democrats are just totally fake. The thing about Ron DeSantis and media, it's like, I mean, we're getting central a lot, and then you see these things what Pete Buttigieg does, and it's like nobody's calling them out for this. Like, obviously what they did against DeSantis was missing context. It was disinformation. Yeah. It's like you don't have any political fact checkers checking what they're doing, and then you get Pete Buttigieg rolling up. I mean, who rides to work in a full suit on a bicycle?
I would like to know.
Obviously,
I'll tell you.
When he gets there, this is the first time he's ever done that. I've done stupid stuff like that before. It's like, I'm never going to do this again. I'm going to pack my suit and I'm going to ride my bike to work.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, my gosh.
When I saw this, I thought about the weatherman. You know, whenever there's a hurricane coming, you have the weatherman there. He's right there trying to get through and the wind's blowing. You just see somebody just walking down the street casually. It's like, it's staged, it's fake. Yeah. But what's so sad about this, people on the left, their constituents, they fall for it. That's the sad thing about it.
That's why so many people gravitate towards DeSantis and President Donald Trump.
They're real.
They're real, and you know it's not script or anything. They just speak from the heart and just comes off so much more genuine. These Democrats are not genuine at all.
Yeah, DeSantis is a rising star. He's a threat. That's why they did what they did.
Yeah,
that's right. I totally agree. Yeah, and what we see from Secretary Buttigieg is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's political theater, and it's what they all do. It sort of reminded me of how I see these people with like 3 masks on. Like, come on, folks. You got to go that far. And by the way, this is like, I'm unfortunately in New York City. This is walking down the street outside in New York City. I'm like, who do you think you are impressing with this? It's the same kind of nonsense. So I'm not surprised to see it from Buttigieg. Finally, I want to go to the border because, guys, there has been so much happening on the border, and what an absolute epic and total failure Joe Biden has been. His border crisis is continuing, and a new Rasmussen poll is showing him hitting a disapproval rating of 51%. There are now rumors that the Biden administration, with that approval rating coming in, is considering plugging the gaps on the border wall. Or let me translate that for everyone, building a wall to keep out illegal immigrants. I wonder who said that. I wonder who started that. So what is going on? Do walls all of a sudden now work under the Biden administration? Have they suddenly decided this? Is there now a need suddenly for us to protect our southern border? This seems like the opposite of what Joe Biden was lying about the entire time on the campaign trail.
Yeah, I mean, it's like whatever Trump did, they had to go against. Everybody knows walls work, but because Trump was going to build a wall, no, it's racist.
Right.
Now, when he gets in office, it's like, wow, I need a wall to plug up these holes. It's like they knew it worked. They just had to go against whatever that man did.
Right.
And now he's stuck with the bag. And what Trump was doing, this border's been a disaster for decades.
Yeah.
But what Trump did, he got it organized. He stopped catch and release in the country. He also made everybody, you had to stay in Mexico and fill out your paperwork there until everything got situated. Mm-hmm. And now as soon as Biden comes in, he reverts back to those old failed policies.
Right.
I mean, he caused all this. And then also these illegal immigrants that's coming there, they have the impression that if they just get here, Biden's there, he'll just let me in.
Right.
This humanitarian crisis as the boy has been worsened by Biden.
Yeah. I mean, walls do work. I mean, the president, he's got a wall with barbed wire in front of the White House with troops.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
walls
right.
work.
All over
I mean,
the Capitol, by the way. All
What was
over the
that?
place. The walls are all over the place in Washington, D.C., yet I guess they only work for certain people. I'm not totally sure, but I think what we're seeing, Stacy, is that the Democrats have boxed themselves in a bit because Joe Biden invited everyone in the world to come across our southern border when he ran for president. Over the past year, he was very clear about the fact that he was going to have an open border policy, that we were going to spend our taxpayer money on health care for people that came to America illegally. We now know that kids that are coming in illegally to our country, at least in San Diego, are getting taught in person, while the kids that are legal citizens of the United States are still virtually learning. All of it is mind-boggling, but I think what we're seeing now is that they're trying to backpedal and they're trying to figure out, well, what do we do now? We don't want to admit that Donald Trump was right? We don't want to admit that what he suggested and what he was actually doing and the policies that he had implemented were actually working for America. So I think they got a bit of a problem on their hands now.
Well, Laura, they do. And as our good friends, the Hodge twins, just pointed out, they were on a breakneck pace to erase the policies of the Trump administration by rescinding his executive orders and proclamations during the first 3 or 4 weeks that he was in office, that Biden came in. And it was some of the stuff that they erased, like there were sex trafficking busts that were done, that they dismantled that portion of different things that were basically cobbled together by the president and his administration, President Trump, to try to handle problems that Congress wouldn't tackle because Nancy Pelosi was in charge of the Congress at the time. So you have all of these successful things that pointed to the success of the Trump administration on the whole. And I know these things. I have all the briefing books. I did all the interviews. He was successful. The list was too long to do incomplete in 5 or 10 or 15 interviews. That's how much success there was. They have gone through and methodically dismantled all of it. And now they're surprised to see 170,000 people cross into our country illegally. Those are the ones that were apprehended. Congressman Darrell Issa was on my program last night, and he said that they estimate that 50% of the people are untouched because of the gaps in the wall and the different areas that are completely unmanned and unpatrolled where you can just walk into our country. So that means 170,000 over 2 months that we know about, and around 18,000 unaccompanied minors, children who are now being stashed in military bases. In California, they've actually kicked the homeless out of a stadium that was their winter shelter where they could have running water and take showers. Those people have been moved into temporary tents with no running water, no shower facilities, so that the illegal alien kids, these are the ones aged 14 to 17, the girls, there are 3 groups of 1,000 that are now in California getting in-person instruction from teachers who are paid by the taxpayers, and 135,000 kids in the San Diego school district who should be getting in-person instruction who are currently on a hybrid that gives them 1 day of in-person and the rest is virtual. So taxpayers are ticked. Governor Gavin Newsom has now 2.5 million people who signed that want him recalled. I really think that's going to be successful this time, which is a good thing because liberals need to see the effect of their policies. But when you talk about that 51% disapproval rating, Laura, I think it's great. I'll take what I can get. Praise God. But 51%, it should be 80% of Americans who are dissatisfied with Biden because of the border, because it's not just a humanitarian crisis. It's an immoral situation that American taxpayers are forced to fund. And, for myself, we have 3 kids and they're teenagers. One is actually 21. I can't believe she dares to be 21. And, I just have to put up with it because she keeps growing up. But you know what, Laura? Anybody who has a heart, anybody who has kids, even if you don't have kids, how can you even stand the picture of the toddlers getting tossed over the fence and a cell phone dropped? I mean, these are real people. They may be migrants. They may be coming here for economic benefits. They're not refugees. They're not the kind of people that we really, in the past, we've said, we'll move heaven and earth to get these people into the country because they've been in a refugee camp for 7 years. Those are the people we really need to be bringing here who are suffering persecution because they're Christians and they're coming out of the Middle East. But these economic migrants are still people, and it's immoral. And I just hope to God that we have more than 51% of our population who see what's happening down there and disapprove of it. and maybe the next poll will show better numbers. But in any case, at least the Biden administration is noticing. But I just can't wait to see what they're going to do. The numbers are so outrageous. How do they fix it at this point? I can't even begin to imagine. And I know Kamala Harris doesn't know what to do with it.
Where is she? Where is the vice president of the United States? Gosh, I remember a year ago when we had the crisis of COVID hit America, and our vice president at the time, Mike Pence, was tapped by President Donald Trump to lead Operation Warp Speed. And what did we see almost immediately? We all remember the press conferences that were held on a daily basis to update Americans about what was going on. That was a crisis. And you know what? They kept people informed. Operation Warp Speed was incredibly successful. We now have vaccines that have been distributed to over 100 million Americans at this point. And I don't see anything coming out of the vice president's office right now. We haven't had a press conference from Kamala Harris. She has not gone to the southern border. She is supposed to be heading up, fixing the southern border. She's supposed to be in charge of this, and she's laughing about it. I mean, Keith and Kevin, I think we all saw the video when someone asked her, a reporter asked her getting off the airplane, well, are you headed to the southern border? She cackled about it, and it's so funny. No, not today. Well, you better get down there soon, right? Because it's crazy. Like, and we're supposed to just go along with this, and nobody's supposed to question it and look the other way. Do you think she's going to make the trip down there, guys?
Not anytime soon, the way she's acting. But I want to point out, I mean, when Trump left office, everything was fine at the border. All they had to do was just keep the assembly line
going.
rolling.
Yes.
Right. But the thing that a lot of people is overlooking, what Biden is doing is encouraging these people to come across our southern border. Most of these people, I'm not sure how many, but a majority of these people don't even fit the requirements to seek asylum in this country. Yeah. He's just releasing them into the country. They're not going to show up for their court date. They'll never be able to become U.S. citizens. Never, because they don't fit the requirements. They're not running from persecution, not running from crime. They're just here for economic reasons. Last time I checked, that does not fit the requirements to seek asylum in the United States of America.
I think it's they're looking at this strategically.
Yeah.
These people are not going to be U.S. citizens, but they're going to have kids while they're here. They're going to be U.S. citizens.
Yeah, and we have these cities where they can harbor these illegal immigrants, and they don't have to face any criminal charges or anything.
Yeah, I mean,
that's right.
These Democrats, they're planning strategically. They're just trying to change how this country looks.
Right.
I mean, these people don't even have American values, so they're pretty much taking advantage of these people.
Yeah, they're going to take advantage of them because they're going to paint this country as being full of racists, and then Democrats are good, Republicans are evil. That's the agenda I think is really going on. They're trying to change the demographics of this country.
Yeah, and don't forget about H.R. 1. They are trying to change the way that we vote in America. And isn't it interesting that they're so strong on not having voter ID? We talked about this at the top of the show. Stacy, we all know that if you don't have identification to go vote, we all know that if you just mail in votes, anyone can fill them out if you're not required to prove who you are. Maybe part of their plan is, I don't know, to get millions of illegal immigrants in America that have an opportunity to just go vote because you're not checking to see if the person is who they say they are, if they're an American citizen, like nothing. It does seem a little suspicious, all the timing and all of it, almost like maybe it was planned, Stacy.
So, Laura, I couldn't stop laughing earlier when the Hodge twins were talking about, the fact that we, as Black people, all have IDs, but they think we can't get them. Because
my gosh,
around America for years now with my ID, banking, checking books out of the library, driving, I mean, I can do whatever I want. So I've been saying, I must be really privileged. And so I'm about it because I have my own ID and I'm Black and I just do all this stuff. I'm like a wild savage out here with this.
It's amazing.
So much with it. It's
common
just
sense
so
is a
cool.
curse in this country.
And I'm telling you guys, I know you guys have IDs too, because we actually hung out in the airport for like 10 minutes and we were on flights that were leaving out of the same similar gate. And I saw them. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the Hodge twins. So they came over and said hi. We didn't even know how privileged we were, did we, guys? And we were ordering our
had no idea.
Champagne.
That's the man white person going.
We flew that day. I mean, I'm so grateful to be an American and also to have an ID. I got to tell you that. But all joking aside, it is the plan, Laura. They do want to federalize elections and make it possible for the cheating that went on in November to go on in perpetuity and make the rest of the country like California, one party rule. But what they're not counting on is that a lot of these people who are coming here, they may be economic migrants. They may be taking advantage of the situation. They may be horrible parents who allow their kids to travel with coyotes. I mean, I could go on, but they're hardworking people and they're coming here for jobs. And so 50% of the Cuban population, over 50%, after arriving here and taking advantage of the American dream, they're Republicans because they're responsible. So these migrants may be coming in under very spurious circumstances, and we are on target to have over 4 million of them hit our shores if we don't stop what's going on at the southern border. By December, we'll have 4.5 million additional people in this country, and the liberals are going to start feeling that because they won't be able to corral 4.5 million people in only conservative communities. So you're going to see a lot of backlash and anger there. But I think it's primarily going to come from the migrants because they've been told by Biden and Harris, if you get here, you get to be a citizen and you get a job. Well, we have high unemployment in most of our major cities. Most of the areas where they would normally go get a job in the restaurant industry have been decimated by the COVID-19 lockdowns. 1 out of every 6 restaurants has now been shuttered permanently, according to Yelp. So these people would be coming to work in the restaurant industry. They would be coming to work in agriculture. The jobs are not there the way they were when Trump was president. So, I'm not counting on it. But I kind of have a feeling that just like everything else the Democrats try, where they suck and they fail and epically, they're like weapons grade morons with their ideas, that when these migrants get here and settle in and realize they were tricked, they were duped into coming here, they're going to be not exactly your most reliable Democrats. And that's what I'm hoping, because we got to have a silver lining here.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. I mean, gosh, the best case scenario would be let's stop the overflow of people coming in over our southern border. Let's make sure that these people, these children, these women are not making this dangerous, treacherous journey north, through Mexico to America. Let's do what's right for the American citizens. Let's do what's right for the people who want to come to our country illegally. Let's do the right thing. But maybe you're right, Stacy. Maybe, if it does end up that they keep this border wide open and everybody comes into America, you're probably right. They're going to be like, wait a minute, I was sold a false bill of goods here because where are all the jobs? Where's everything that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris promised me? Maybe it's not here. So with that, I want to say thank you to you guys, Stacy Washington, Keith and Kevin Hodge, the Hodge twins. Thank you guys so much for joining us on The Right View. We hope that you will come back soon. And to everybody out there watching, thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here next week for more of The Right View.